Okay, so you think you know the US, right? You know about the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, and the Rocky Mountains, but trust me, there's a whole lot of weird, wild, and downright mind-blowing geography hidden across America. Some of these facts are so strange they sound totally fake, but I promise you they're 100% real. So, buckle up because we're about to take a deep dive into 50 surprising geography facts about the US. I am sure you're crazily excited. 1. The US has an inland sea. The Great Lakes are absolutely massive. They hold over 20% of the world's fresh surface water. That's a mind-blowing amount. But the idea that they could flood the entire US in 10 feet of water is a bit of an exaggeration. More realistic estimates put it closer to 5 feet, still pretty wild. And get this, Lake Superior alone has enough water to cover all of North and South America in a foot of water. So, yeah, if you ever find yourself near the Great Lakes, just know you're standing next to what's basically an inland ocean. 2. Alaska has more volcanoes than any other state. When you think of volcanoes, you probably picture Hawaii, right? Well, plot twist, Alaska is the real volcano king of the US. It has over 130 active volcanoes, and guess what? It's home to 80% of all active volcanoes in the US. More than 50 of these volcanoes have erupted since the 1700s, and some are still going strong today. If you ever visit Alaska, just know you're basically walking on top of one giant restless volcanic hot zone. 3. The US hosts the world's largest volcano. Hawaii is home to the biggest volcano on Earth, and no, it's not the one you're thinking of. Mauna Kea might not look as dramatic as Everest, but if you measure it from its base on the ocean floor, it stands at a staggering 33,500 feet, 10,210 meters, making it taller than Mount Everest. The only reason Everest gets all the glory is that most of Mauna Kea is underwater. But if we're talking about pure size, Mauna Loa takes the win. It's the largest volcano by volume and also one of the most active. So yeah, when it comes to volcanoes, Hawaii doesn't mess around. 4. America's coldest place will freeze your eyelashes off. If you thought winter in Minnesota was bad, imagine stepping outside in Prospect Creek, Alaska, where the lowest temperature in US history was recorded. -80 degrees Fahrenheit, -62 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, boiling water instantly turns into ice if you throw it into the air. Metal sticks to your skin like superglue. Car batteries just stop existing. And if you go outside without protection, frostbite is basically guaranteed in under 2 minutes. So yeah, if you ever visit Alaska in winter, maybe just don't. At least, I would never. 5. The US has a fossil forest. Imagine walking through a forest where the trees aren't trees at all but stone. That's exactly what you'll find in Yellowstone National Park, home to a petrified forest that's over 50 million years old. Back in ancient times, volcanic ash buried these trees so quickly that their organic material slowly turned into rock. Now, they stand frozen in time, preserved as solid stone replicas of what they once were. It's like nature decided to press pause for eternity. 6. Death Valley has a soundless zone. Death Valley isn't just the hottest place in the US, but it's also one of the quietest. The dry air and vast, empty landscape absorb sound, creating an eerie stillness. No birds, no rustling leaves, and sometimes not even the wind. It's not completely silent, but standing there alone feels almost surreal. 7. The US has a hidden sea. Okay, so remember the Sargasso Sea from school? No? Well, it's basically the only sea on Earth that doesn't touch any land, and part of it is technically in US waters near Puerto Rico. But here's the weird part. It's filled with floating seaweed, but has no real boundaries. Ships can drift into it and never even realize they're inside a different sea. It's like a giant invisible water world floating in the Atlantic. 8. There are whistling sand dunes in California. Normal sand dunes? Boring. California's imperial sand dunes? They whistle. No, really. When the wind moves over the sand, it creates a weird whistling sound. Scientists say it happens because of the way the sand grains rub together. Some dunes even make booming noises loud enough to hear from miles away. So if you ever go hiking in California and hear a random whoo sound, Don't freak out, it's just the sand talking to you. 9. The US has the deepest canyon. Everyone talks about the Grand Canyon, but did you know the deepest canyon in the US is actually Hell's Canyon in Idaho and Oregon? It's 7,993 feet deep, and that's even deeper than the Grand Canyon. And despite the scary name, it's not actually filled with fire and brimstone, just a whole lot of rugged cliffs and beautiful scenery. 10. America has a silent volcano. Lassen Peak in California is the largest plug dome volcano in the world. Unlike explosive volcanoes, it doesn't erupt with a dramatic blast. Instead, it slowly pushes out lava, kind of like toothpaste squeezing out of a tube. Its last major eruption was between 1914 and 1921, and while it's been quiet for a while, it's still considered an active volcano. Scientists keep a close eye on it because, well, you never know. 11. The lowest town in the US isn't New Orleans. Surprise. The lowest town in the US is actually Calipatria, California, sitting at 184 feet below sea level. But if we're talking about the lowest point in North America, that honor goes to Badwater Basin in Death Valley, which plunges 282 feet below sea level. As for New Orleans, some parts do sit up to 10 feet below sea level, which is why the city depends on levees and pumps to keep from turning into a waterlogged disaster. 12. Wyoming's rivers take the long way to the ocean. Wyoming definitely has rivers, but here's the twist: none of them flow directly into the ocean. Instead, they all drain into larger river systems, like the Missouri River, which eventually makes its way to the Gulf of Mexico. Wyoming isn't alone in this. Other landlocked states have the same setup. So, while Wyoming's rivers might take the scenic route, they still connect to the sea, just with a few detours along the way. 13. The Rocky Mountains are a beast. We all know the Rocky Mountains are big, but here's something crazy. They stretch over 3,000 miles from Canada to New Mexico. That's farther than the distance from New York to Los Angeles. Imagine walking that entire length. Yeah, no thanks. 14. The US has its own Dead Sea. Utah's Great Salt Lake is basically the US version of the Dead Sea. It's so salty that fish can't survive, and people can float effortlessly in the water. Fun fact, it's actually shrinking at an alarming rate, and if it disappears completely, it could trigger massive dust storms. Yikes. 15. Colorado's sand dunes came from the mountains. You'd think giant sand dunes belong in a desert, right? Well, Colorado's Great Sand Dunes were actually formed by mountain winds, pushing sand into giant piles over thousands of years. They're the tallest dunes in North America, reaching up to 750 feet high. Nature is wild. 16. Maine's border is kind of a mistake or no? In the early 1800s, the US and Britain, Canada, had a border dispute over parts of Maine, leading to the Aroostook War, 1838 to 1839, though no actual fighting happened. Instead of going to war, both sides negotiated the Webster-Ashburton Treaty, 1842, where the US gave up land about the size of Rhode Island to Canada. So, while it might feel like a mistake, it was actually a carefully negotiated deal to keep the peace. 17. Glacier National Park is losing its glaciers. Here's the sad truth. Glacier National Park in Montana used to have over 150 glaciers. Now, only about 25 are left. Scientists say that by 2030, there might be none left at all. So, if you ever wanted to see a real glacier without flying to Antarctica, you better start packing your bags now. 18. Alaska is so huge it dwarfs most countries. If Alaska were its own country, it would be the 18th largest in the world, bigger than Texas, California, and Montana combined. For perspective, it covers more land than France, Spain, Germany, and Italy combined. And if you cut Alaska in half, each half would still be bigger than Texas. Yep, Alaska plays in a league of its own. 19. Texas is literally bigger than France. Texas is huge and actually bigger than France. It's actually about 1.5 times larger. With around 268,000 square miles, Texas is still bigger than any European country except Russia. So Texans, your state is massive. 20. Hawaii's volcanoes are still creating new land. Hawaii isn't just sitting there, it's actively growing. That's right. Hawaii's Big Island is literally getting bigger every year because of lava flows from Kilauea and Mauna Loa. Lava spills into the ocean, cools, and creates brand new land. This means that technically, parts of Hawaii are younger than your grandma's house. 21. Lake Michigan is a literal ship graveyard. You'd think the most dangerous waters would be in the middle of the ocean, right? Nope. Lake Michigan has over 1,500 shipwrecks, making it one of the biggest underwater graveyards in the world. Some of these ships are so well preserved that divers can still see dishes and furniture inside, just frozen in time under the water. Some ships even vanished without a trace, leading to theories about a Great Lakes Triangle, like the Bermuda Triangle but colder. 22. Florida has a river that disappears and then reappears. Imagine watching a river just vanish into the ground like a magic trick. That's what happens with Florida's Dead River. The water literally sinks underground at one point and then pops up again miles away like nothing ever happened. Scientists are still studying exactly how this works. Nature, man. It's got some serious glitches. 23rd. Yosemite Falls. Look frozen? Yosemite Falls, 2,425 feet high, is the tallest waterfall in North America, and in winter, it partially freezes, creating an incredible frozen mist effect. While it doesn't literally freeze mid-air, the ice formations and mist can make it look like a frozen waterfall, adding to Yosemite's already jaw-dropping scenery. 24. The Missouri River is longer than the Mississippi. Everyone thinks the Mississippi River is the longest in the US, but surprise, it's actually the Missouri River. The Missouri stretches 2,341 miles, while the Mississippi is a bit shorter at 2,320 miles. Basically, Missouri has been the real MVP of rivers this whole time, and no one gave it credit. 25. The Mississippi River reverses direction, sometimes. Speaking of the Mississippi, did you know it can flow backward? This actually happened in 1812 when a massive earthquake on the New Madrid Fault shook the land so hard that the Mississippi reversed course for a few hours. Imagine watching a whole river just change direction in front of your eyes. That's some end-of-the-world movie-level stuff right there. 26. Mexico has the world's longest underwater cave system. The world's longest underwater cave system is actually Sac Actun in Mexico. This massive labyrinth of submerged tunnels stretches over 230 miles, 370 kilometers, and is still being explored. Discovered in the Yucatan Peninsula, this cave system is not only a diver's paradise but also holds ancient Mayan artifacts and fossils. Scientists believe there could be even more hidden passageways, making it one of the most mysterious underwater worlds on Earth. 27. The Colorado River is still shaping the Grand Canyon. The Colorado River is still slowly carving the Grand Canyon, but it's not happening fast. Erosion takes thousands to millions of years, gradually deepening and reshaping the canyon. In geologic time, though, the transformation is still ongoing. 28th. Alaska's islands stretch so far, they cross the dateline. Alaska isn't just big, it's weirdly stretched out. The Aleutian Islands extend so far west that some of them are actually across the international dateline, meaning that in Alaska you can literally time travel. One island could be a day ahead of another. It's like a real-life sci-fi plot. 29. The Great Lakes hold 20% of the world's fresh water. That's right. The Great Lakes aren't just big, they're insanely important. They contain 1/5 of all the fresh water on Earth. If you drained them, you'd have enough water to cover the entire US in 10 feet of water. Basically, the Great Lakes are a national treasure. 30. New Hampshire's tides create powerful currents. New Hampshire's Great Bay experiences some of the strongest tidal currents in the US, creating whirlpools and turbulent waters. While it may look like boiling water, it's actually just fast-moving tides causing intense swirling currents. No actual boiling happens, just some seriously powerful water movement. 31. The US has mountain waves that make UFO-shaped clouds. Ever seen a cloud that looks like a flying saucer? That's called a lenticular cloud, and they form over mountains when strong winds create waves in the air. These clouds are so perfectly round that people often mistake them for UFOs. Aliens? Probably not. But still cool. 32. Hawaii has the wettest place in the US. Ever wondered where it rains the most? Welcome to Mount Waialil in Hawaii, where it rains almost every single day, averaging 460 inches of rain per year. That's more than the Amazon rainforest. So yeah, don't forget your umbrella. 33. Maine has an unbelievable snow phenomenon. Alright, picture this. You wake up in winter, look outside, and see perfectly round snowballs rolling across your yard and all by themselves. Sounds like a prank, right? Nope. It's a real thing called snow rollers, and Maine is one of the only places in the US where they happen. Here's how it works. The wind has to be strong enough to push freshly fallen snow, but not too strong to destroy it. The snow rolls up like a carpet, forming natural snowballs as big as basketballs. 34. Death Valley has seen snow. I know what you're thinking. Wait, isn't Death Valley literally the hottest place on Earth? Yes. But guess what? It has snowed there before. While it's rare, Death Valley's higher elevations do get occasional snowfall, especially on peaks like Telescope Peak. The valley floor itself has even seen light snow dustings in extreme cold snaps. Just imagine standing in one of the driest, hottest places in the world while it snows. Whoa, that would be fun. 35. Alaska has a place where the sun doesn't set for 2 months. Welcome to Utqiagvik, Alaska, formerly Barrow, the northernmost town in the US and the closest thing to living in a sci-fi movie. There is a sun for 65 days straight in summer and it never sets. That's right, people in Utqiagvik literally experience 24 hours of daylight for 2 months straight. On the flip side, they also get 2 months of total darkness in winter. Imagine waking up, going to work, eating dinner, and it's still the same day. Boring, won't that? 36. Texas has a rainstorm that brings fish? Okay, this one is straight up biblical. There's a town in Texas called Texarkana where it once rained fish from the sky. Yeah, fish falling from the clouds. Scientists say this rare phenomenon happens when water spouts or tornadoes pick up small fish from lakes and then drop them miles away. But imagine stepping outside during a storm and having fish land on your car. That's gotta be some next-level bad luck. 37. Tornadoes have hit every state. Every single US state, including Alaska and Hawaii, has been hit by a tornado at some point. Even places like Maine and California have had tornadoes touch down. So if you ever thought you were safe from them, just know that Mother Nature doesn't play favorites. 38. The US had its heaviest 24-hour snowfall in Colorado. The biggest single-day snowfall in US history happened in Silver Lake, Colorado in 1921, when 95 inches, almost 8 feet of snow fell in just 24 hours. For comparison, one of the most damaging blizzards, the Great Blizzard of 1888, dumped over 50 inches of snow across multiple states, shutting down entire cities. When it comes to extreme snow, the US has seen some record-breaking storms. 39. Alaska's weather swings are insane. We already know Alaska gets colder than Mars, but did you know it also gets shockingly warm? In the middle of winter, some places in Alaska have experienced temperature swings of 100 degrees Fahrenheit in just a few days. In 2019, parts of Alaska jumped from negative 65 degrees Fahrenheit to 35 degrees Fahrenheit in less than a week. That's like going from Antarctica to spring in New York overnight. 40. The Peshtigo fire was deadlier than the Great Chicago Fire. Most people know about the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, but on the same day, a far deadlier fire hit Peshtigo, Wisconsin. The Peshtigo fire burned down 1.5 million acres, and that's 3 times the size of Rhode Island, and killed over 1,500 people. It was so intense that it created a literal fire tornado, with flames jumping rivers and melting iron. Yet, most people have never even heard of it. 41. There's an island in the US that's completely inaccessible by car. Ever heard of Isle Royale National Park in Michigan? It's one of the least visited national parks, but not because it's boring, it's because you can't get there by car. Your only options? Boat or plane. Oh, and there's no permanent human population, just wolves, moose, and untouched wilderness. 42. Some US communities have no post office. There are many small unincorporated communities and ghost towns in the U.S. without any post office. Residents in these areas must rely on nearby towns for mail service, making everyday deliveries a bit more of a hassle. 43. Hawaii ignores daylight saving time. Hawaii doesn't bother with daylight saving time. They just stayed on the same time forever, refusing to play the spring forward fall back game. Why? Because they don't need it. Their sunrise and sunset times barely change, so why mess with the clocks? Meanwhile, the rest of us are out here suffering through the twice-a-year sleep confusion. 44. The longest bridge in the U.S. isn't fully over water. The Lake Pontchartrain Causeway in Louisiana is the longest continuous bridge over water in the U.S., stretching 24 miles. However, the longest bridge overall is the Manchac Swamp Bridge, also in Louisiana, at 36 miles, though part of it is over land. Either way, if you have a fear of long bridges, Louisiana might not be your favorite place. 45. Las Vegas is never fully dark. Even at 3 a.m., you can step outside in Vegas and still need sunglasses. This city is so lit, literally, that it's one of the brightest places on Earth from space. Vegas, where nighttime just means the sun is replaced by neon lights. 46. Alaska's state bird changes colors. The willow ptarmigan, Alaska's official state bird, is basically a bird ninja. In summer, it's brown to blend in with rocks. In winter, it turns completely white for camouflage. 47th. Hawaii is the rainbow capital of the U.S. While North Dakota does see its fair share of rainbows, Hawaii has the most rainbows and double rainbows in the U.S. Thanks to its moist air, frequent rain showers, and perfect sunlight angles, Hawaii is basically a real-life paradise for rainbow lovers. 48. New Orleans has been rebuilt a lot. Between hurricanes and floods, New Orleans has been rebuilt multiple times. Yet, it still stands, proof that this city is too stubborn to quit. 49. The largest U.S. forest is bigger than some countries. Tongass National Forest in Alaska is so huge, it's bigger than West Virginia. Think about that next time you feel lost in the woods. 50. Fifth Avenue is America's most expensive shopping street. Fifth Avenue, in New York City, is America's most expensive shopping street where rent can cost over $2,000 per square foot, making it one of the most expensive shopping destinations in the world. If you loved these, share them with a friend because who doesn't love random, jaw-dropping facts? Thanks for watching and see you in the next of Earth Basics.